بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على سيد الأنبياء والمرسلين نبينا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين أما بعد. You guys will have to be a little patient with me. I'm sorry. I know my voice doesn't project very well. So if you cannot hear me, just ask me to speak up and I'll do the best that I can to make sure that I am speaking up. We're going to be talking about the Prophet stories, the first of them obviously being Adam alayhi salatu wassalam. What is the benefit, or number one, why did Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mention these narratives? Like, why are these stories even in the Quran? I think that's an important question that we can discuss. What are some of the benefits that we can take from these stories? And why is it that He Azza wa Jal, so most of the prophets, where they're mentioned in the Quran, would you think that they're mentioned in Mecca or in Medina? And why? In Mecca, okay. So, in Mecca, who was the Prophet ﷺ dealing with? He was dealing with Quraysh, right? So what is the link of Quraysh to these prophets? And did they believe in prophets? Yes, okay. And in Medina, who did he deal with? The Jews. And were they familiar with the prophets? Yeah, right. So that's something that's understood. So you guys are saying that the Quraysh were also familiar with the prophets? Or no? Yes, they were? I would imagine so, right? Otherwise, what is a very easy question that the pagans would ask the moment that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala starts talking about Adam or Nuh or Lut, right? So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He mentions all these prophets. What is the first thing that the Quraysh would say if they're hearing these names and they didn't know who they were? They'd be like, who are these people? Why are you mentioning them? Why are you talking about them? Right? It's like, what does this have to do with us? What is another reason that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala might mention the prophets and messengers?
Give an example.
Okay, to give an example for us, right? So whoever is listening, it's meant to be an example for them, for the believers specifically, absolutely. Who else could be part of that target audience? Who else could Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala be addressing? Or who's the first person to receive the Quran? The Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is telling the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam stories of previous prophets and messengers, why would he Azza wa Jal do that?
To get him to understand his lineage. Like in
Okay.
sense that,
Okay.
the first one to come.
Right. So you're not the first prophet, you're not the first messenger, and you're not the first one to deal with these problems. And when he sallallahu alaihi wasallam would hear these stories and he would hear these narratives, what would that do for him? It would comfort him, right? It would comfort him and it would encourage him. Like, okay, yeah, things are really bad now for me, but at least they're not as bad as they were for Nuh, right? If I'm getting some questions and I'm getting some challenges from my followers, well, at least they're not as bad as what Musa alayhi salam was dealing with. So I think there is definitely a sense of comfort that exists, and it is one of the reasons that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala revealed this and shared these stories with the Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam, especially in Mecca, because the hardship and the difficulty in terms of the boycotting that he sallallahu alaihi wasallam faced financially, that he faced socially, that he faced spiritually, that was mainly in Mecca. In Medina, it was more political, right? And how they set that up, how they set up the Islamic State at the time, how they created treaties with the people that they were dealing with, and they were a little bit more established, which is probably why we find a little bit less of that in Medina. So the first story Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala He talks about is the story of Adam, which we're all familiar with. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala He says, وَإِذْ قَالَ رَبُّكَ لِلْمَلَائِكَةِ إِنِّي جَاعِلٌ فِي الْأَرْضِ خَلِيفَةً قَالُوا أَتَجْعَلُ فِيهَا مَن يُفْسِدُ فِيهَا وَيَسْفِكُ الدِّمَاءَ وَنَحْنُ نُسَبِّحُ بِحَمْدِكَ وَنُقَدِّسُ لَكَ قَالَ إِنِّي أَعْلَمُ مَا لَا تَعْلَمُونَ. That when your Lord told the angels, I am placing a successor, I'm placing a Khalifa on the earth, they said, how can you put someone there who will cause damage and bloodshed when we celebrate your praise and proclaim your holiness? He said, I know things that you do not. What are some things that we can benefit from this verse? So I'll read it again. Should I put it up on the screen? Will that be easier? So this is the ayah in question. What are some takeaways that you guys get from this verse?
We should not always know the details.
Okay, for sure. That Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He might order something, He might tell us something, and it's not necessary that we know all of the intricacies behind those. Absolutely. What else? Yes.
Allah knows higher wisdom more than like stuff that we don't know.
Absolutely. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will always know better and always know more. What else? And what stands out here? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He says that when your Lord told the angels, I am putting a successor on earth.
Which is us.
Right? So when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala talks about Khalifa, when He talks about the successor, when He talks about someone, the caretaker, He's talking about us as mankind. And where is He going to put us? On the earth. Where did He create Adam?
Up in the heaven.
You guys note that?
Yeah.
So He created Adam alayhi salam in paradise, always intending to place him where? On earth. That was always the plan. It was never, so this idea that he, alayhi salam, he was removed from paradise, absolutely. But even that removal, it was very intentional. It was very intentional that we essentially were meant to end up being here. And they said, how can you put someone who will cause damage and bloodshed? Why are they saying that?
Because of what has happened.
Okay, so they had to have some type of knowledge, right? There's something that they knew and that they're asking Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, not in a challenging way, but they're questioning. And they're asking, saying that, okay, yeah, Allah, you're making this creation, you're making this being. Why are you making this being when the last time you did this, all they did was fight and kill each other?
When was the last?
So when was the last time? And who are the angels talking about? Or who are they implying?
The jinn.
All right, so the jinn. That's majority historians, they say it's the jinn.
Or maybe Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gave them some information about
Sure.
it. The upcoming.
Right, it's possible. Maybe Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala inspired the angels. That's a possibility. One possibility is that they had the experience, and that experience is with previous creation. Majority of historians, they say it's the jinn. There's a minority of historians, they say it's Hin and Bin. We could go into that discussion later. I want to focus more on Adam alayhi salam right now. And when we celebrate your praise and your holiness, He said, I know things that you do not. So when the angels are asking this, they're asking this because they're being inquisitive. Right? They're saying, okay, well, why are you doing that? Yeah, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And Allah answers them what?
I know things you don't.
Right? It's like, hey, listen, there are things that I know that you just don't know or you won't know. So that might take the inspiration part out of it. Right? Because He's saying that, hey, listen, there are always going to be things that I know, things that you don't. And that's something that you have to submit to and something you have to accept. The only thing that stands out here is immediately Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He goes on to say, وَعَلَّمَ آدَمَ الْأَسْمَاءَ كُلَّهَا ثُمَّ عَرَضَهُمْ عَلَى الْمَلَائِكَةِ فَقَالَ أَنْبِئُونِي بِأَسْمَاءِ هَؤُلَاءِ إِن كُنتُمْ صَادِقِينَ. That He taught Adam the names of all things, then He showed them to the angels and said, tell me the names of these if you truly think you can. So basically Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He created Adam. And Adam, He started pointing out stuff in paradise. He's like, well, that's a tree, and this is grass, and this is a river, and blah, blah, blah. And the angels, they're all sitting there like, they're kind of shrinking down, and they're like, dang. And immediately, what do you think happened with the angels? They understood. They're like, oh man, that's what Allah was talking about. Not only did He start telling them the names of all the things around them, He started telling them their own names. Like, you're Mikael, and you're Jibreel, and they're like, some things that they weren't even aware of. And when you deal with other people, or you talk about certain things or certain issues that maybe you might specialize in, for them it's almost like opening up a whole new world, right? And just imagine that this is a very similar case with the angels. Now they're dealing with this being, and when they say here that we celebrate you, we do your tasbih, we do your tamheed, when we do these things, why do you need this other creation? And now they have this creation coming forward and pointing out and naming all of these things, all of the stuff that they did and all of the stuff they felt that was very valued, right? These are the things that were valuable to them, and they are valuable, no doubt. How do they feel in front of this new creation? Right? They feel weak and belittled. They're like, man, we thought we were doing something, right? Like, we really thought we were doing something, and now there's this creation that just took it to a whole new level. And here, they accepted. They said, قَالُوا سُبْحَانَكَ لَا عِلْمَ لَنَا إِلَّا مَا عَلَّمْتَنَا إِنَّكَ أَنْتَ الْعَلِيمُ الْحَكِيمُ. They said, may you be glorified, we have knowledge, only what you have taught us, you are the all-knowing, the all-wise. over here, I want to talk about this ayah because I always found it really interesting. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He says, قَالَ يَا آدَمُ أَنْبِئْهُمْ بِأَسْمَائِهِمْ فَلَمَّا أَنْبَأَهُم بِأَسْمَائِهِمْ قَالَ أَلَمْ أَقُل لَكُمْ إِنِّي أَعْلَمُ مَا غَيْبَ السَّمَاوَاتِ وَالْأَرْضِ وَأَعْلَمُ مَا تُبْدُونَ وَمَا كُنْتُمْ تَكْتُمُونَ. That He said, Adam, tell them the names of these. When He told them their names, Allah said, did I not tell you that what it is hidden in the heavens and the earth, and what I know, what you reveal, and what you conceal? Who is He talking to? This last part, this question. He says, I know what you reveal and what you conceal. Who is He talking to? He's talking to the angels. So when He says to the angels, I know what you reveal and what you conceal, what are they revealing and what are they concealing? Oh, man. Oh, no. What did you just do? You gave angels feelings.
Okay. Well, they feel it.
Huh?
They were like, I was just saying, I know that, so angels are free from sin, they're free from like
Sure.
imperfections. And so
I don't know.
Isn't jealousy like a sort of imperfect feeling?
Is there anything else that we could read into the ayah? This is Allah's statement, right? I know what you make apparent and what you hide. And if we look at the series of events and the series of discussions that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala brings, and they're just kind of getting blown away by Adam, right? Time and again. Adam's like, yeah, well, this is your name and this is what this is, blah, blah. And not just that, when you have this knowledge of being able to name things and being able to recognize things, how is your engagement with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? Is that much deeper? If I only have a superficial knowledge of if there is a wird or a litany or things that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given me on how to praise Him, right? This is basically what the angels had, right? You praise me like A, B, C, A, B, C, D, E, F, G. And then you have Adam now, all of a sudden he can get a lot more creative with the way that he's praising, the way he's engaging with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And for them, that's like a completely new paradigm, something that they're completely unfamiliar with. And they thought they were doing something big, and now like, man, this guy, not only is he better than us, he is head and shoulders like far beyond us.
He has like free will.
Yeah, well, so this is an interesting thing. There is a discussion that talks about, do angels have free will? Because you have some scholars who will say, no, they don't, right? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He says that they do what they're commanded. And then there are some who say, no, they do that out of choice, consistently. Is there a way for us to tell the difference? No. That, like, we don't have, and not just that, even the verses, you can understand them both ways. You can be like, okay, they do, every time Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala orders them to do something, what do? They do it. And we don't have any instances where they don't do it. But you do have instances here where they're questioning, they're asking, you know what I mean? And I don't mean to say human in the sense that they're human, but you do have a lot of, like, flaws that are coming out now. And you have these questions like, well, why Allah? Why are you doing that? I thought we were, good enough. I thought the stuff we were doing was, like, I thought it was pleasing to you. I thought it was making you happy. And then they see this creation, and He's doing all these things, and it's just making them feel smaller and smaller and smaller. Until we get to this point where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He says to them what? He's like, I know what you're hiding. So is it possible that they're hiding jealousy? I think so. Right? That's how I would read it. Interestingly enough, Ibn Kathir says whoever feels the angels have jealousy is ignorant. So I guess I'm ignorant. But you have different engagements in different ways of looking at a lot of these things. And at the end of all of this, so Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He makes His creation. The angels are questioning, right? They're starting to get these pangs of jealousy. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He's like, okay, you know what? I'm going to settle this once and for all. And He closes with this, وَإِذْ قُلْنَا لِلْمَلَائِكَةِ اسْجُدُوا لِآدَمَ. And He says, I order you to make sajda to Adam. I order you to prostrate to Adam. Because this now closes the discussion on what? Huh? No, you can say it, bro. Go ahead. Do it.
Adam is
Superior, absolutely. Are we superior to horses?
Yes.
Okay, so why can't we be superior to angels?
Of course we can.
Of course we can, absolutely, 100%. Right? Did Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala send the angels as Khalifa?
No.
No, he sent us. Sometimes we don't do a good job, but that's a different story. Right? At the end of the day, when we talk about as a species, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala definitely has made mankind superior. And he's kind of sealing the deal here and saying, okay, listen, you have to bow to them so that you have that recognition. And when they're commanded and when they do that, the only one that doesn't do it is who? Is Iblis. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He says here, right? With قُلْنَا لِلْمَلَائِكَةِ اسْجُدُوا لِآدَمَ فَسَجَدُوا إِلَّا إِبْلِيسَ أَبَى وَاسْتَكْبَرَ. Right? He refused, and what caused him to refuse? His pride. What is the opposite of pride? Humility. So who showed humility? So you have now, everybody's watching this scene, right? Everybody's there. You have the angels are there, Iblis is there, and they're seeing this creation, right? They're seeing this new creation. They're seeing how he's interacting. They're seeing how he's dealing. And they're starting to feel these pangs of jealousy. Who else is feeling jealous with them? Iblis is feeling jealous with them. But the angels, what did they do that was different? So when the time to differentiate, right, came, they listened because what did they do? They showed humility. So one of the reasons I really enjoy this part of the story is because it's a sign of, right, when we feel jealousy, how do we deal with it? And how should we deal with it? Because I have a choice. I have a choice to be humble, or I have a choice to be proudful and arrogant, right? Prideful and arrogant. In this situation, the angels, they chose to be humble. In Iblis, he chose to be proud and he chose to be arrogant. And this is why Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala punished him. Somebody asked, they're like, well, can't Iblis be forgiven? He's going to hellfire, for sure. So what is the easiest way for Iblis to undermine this entire religion? Yes?
So I mean, he does, but he doesn't like.
I mean, he believes in Allah, right? You have other ayat that talk about him making sajda. You have different narrations that talk about who he was and how pious a being he was. He was one of the gatekeepers of paradise, right? So he definitely had, he challenged Allah here, right? And what did he challenge him with? He challenged him in regard to mankind. Like, he didn't start cursing Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So the question is like, okay, well, everybody's like, okay, well, pride can be forgiven, correct? Then what happened with Iblis?
Because Allah knew it.
What's the difference between the two? What did Adam do? He asked for forgiveness, right? That's the difference. At the end of the day, like here, if he disobeyed Allah, are there times where we disobey Allah? Absolutely, right? And we hope and we ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to forgive us of our sins and shortcomings. But he didn't. He was like, he doubled down. He's like, okay, not only am I not going to make sajda, he's like, give me permission to misguide them too. Like, he doubled down. And if, subhanAllah, the saddest thing about this entire thing, if he wanted to undermine the entire message of Islam, all he has to do is come forward and be like, I make tawbah. That's all he has to do. And quit his job. No, seriously. It's all he has to do. He could come forward today and be like, you know what, I quit, I'm good. Ya Allah, forgive me for what I did. I'm not going to do this anymore. But look at the spite and look at the arrogance and look at the pride. He's willing to take that to his grave. Right? Look how foul pride and arrogance can be, and how far it can push a person. And sometimes, like, we don't think about this, but I've seen this especially when it comes to like broken marriages. Like, so when people get divorced, what happens is, like, you have the mother and the father, and both of them are kind of playing tug of war with the kid. Right? They're like, oh, well, you get custody, I don't get custody, you can't see him, I can't see him. In all of that, who gets hurt? The kids do. Why are the mother and father doing this? Because they love the children, right? I don't think anybody can differ with that. But why are they doing that? This spite, right? Like, it's just spite, it's just pride. It's like, you hurt me, and I'm going to do whatever I can to hurt you, and I don't care what the tool is. Arrogance. It's so evil, it's so foul.
They call it sinking the ship you're on just to kill the captain.
I'm sorry?
People want to sink the ship they're on just to kill the captain.
Yeah, and there's another saying too. It's like, you cut off your nose to spite your face, right? Like, you're only hurting yourself. Like, you're not benefiting even from this. Like, other than filling his ego, right? Other than massaging his ego, what is continuously trying to misguide mankind doing for him? That's it. It's just trying to make him feel better because he essentially wants to be better than Adam alayhi salam and be better than mankind. طيب. After this, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, what does he do? So Iblis, he's like, no, I'm not going to make sajda. Adam alayhi salam, he's still in paradise. Adam alayhi salam, he gets lonely. And then what happens? All right, then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala creates Hawa. It's amazing how the first relationship Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala creates is what? Marriage, right? I always found that very sweet. You know, this idea that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the first relationship he creates between two human beings is that of husband and wife. And how did that actually happen? He Azza wa Jal, it said that he took a rib from Adam, and from that he created Hawa. And you have a hadith that say, okay, well, the nature of the woman is curved because she was made from that rib. And sometimes when we think of curved, we think of it in a negative context, right? Yes or no? It's like, oh, it's not straight. Take a break? Okay. Wait, you want to sell some coffee? You know what? I want you guys to think about this. This idea of a woman having a curved nature. Is that a problem? Yes or no? And why or why not? And we'll come back to that, inshallah. Huh? It's a cliffhanger, right? Stay tuned, right? Stay tuned. But inshallah, we'll take a 5-minute break, and then we'll come back to that question, because I want to hear what it is that you guys have to say about it. Jazakumullah khair. Before that, I think it's important to kind of set the scene where, just imagine Adam alayhi salam, he's in paradise, right? Which is clearly an amazing place, but he's there alone. And who are the only other beings that are around? The angels. And the angels, they're kind of bland for him, right? And in that situation, it's very clear that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala sees that his creation that he just made is lonely. So what does he do? He provides for him this partner. And then the angels, they're like, oh man, who's this? And he named her Hawa. Do you guys know why? Because she was made from something living. And then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, like basically he fell asleep, he woke up and he found her there. And he asked, he's like, who are you? You know, and why did Allah create you? And she said to him, so that you may find peace in me. So this idea of crookedness is one that I really think is important to talk about. And I wanted to hear what your guys' thoughts were around it. Who would like to begin? Who would like to share? Yes.
So that's that kind of.
So I have a question. Are there men who are like that?
Yes.
Oh, absolutely.
Absolutely, right?
Yeah, so that's why I said human
Yeah.
instead of saying it's like.
Okay. No. So I'm saying this idea of, because you have many hadiths that say that Hawa was created from the crooked part of the rib, and that is inherently in a woman's nature. So my question is what does that mean? And I understand you can have individual examples of like, okay, well, yeah, they do so many things that are good, but they still have this element of crookedness. I don't think that's uniquely female, though.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Anyone else? Yes.
I think so.
Sure.
And so that's what I would mean.
Okay. So you would say that women generally are more emotionally driven? Is that
I'd say emotionally intelligent.
more emotionally intelligent?
Have better EQ.
Okay. So that's what crookedness means. I mean, that's fine. I'm asking. Like, I get to hear all the answers.
I mean, maybe with this, it meant only like the material.
Okay.
Because if you look back at this ayah, it says clearly that we have created you all from the same soul.
Yeah.
From a single soul.
Sure.
So the soul is different than the material itself.
All right.
Yes, Hawa was created from dhula, but
Yeah.
Adam was created from dirt also.
Sure.
So, I mean, it's just the material.
Yeah. So does the
It's backed by this idea.
does the material have an effect on the taba'? So Adam alayhi salam was created from dirt. Yeah.
With those, I would say like it's trainable. I mean, you
Mm-hmm.
can get trained always to be better, no matter what.
Sure.
how.
No, I'm saying, what is the nice thing with dirt? What is the nice thing with dirt? You can mold it,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
But it's still very, it can still be very hard, like many men are, right? So, is crookedness bad?
No. That's why I feel like
Yeah.
through the translation.
So it actually uses the word awaj, right? So which is like it's like a lack of straightness or a crookedness. But at the end of the day, like if you look at, there's so many things that, like the moon, if it was just a slit in the sky,
Right.
would it have the same beauty,
No.
right? And even when you look at bananas, and you see the straight one, that's not the one you want to eat, right? Right? You want the one that's curved. So this idea of like curve or awaj or crookedness, it is just talking about, and not just that, it's meant to show a difference from the characteristic of men. And that fundamentally men and women are what? They're different. That's all. And it's important to understand when the nature of two beings is different, that how they deal with one another should be reflective of that. Does that make sense? Because it's not about better or worse. Are there men in paradise? Absolutely. Are there women in paradise? Yeah, absolutely. Are there men in hellfire? Yes. Are there women in hellfire? Right. So it's not about like, oh, okay. If it was just an issue of that character or that issue, you would only have one or the other, right? You wouldn't have both. So I think in crookedness there is beauty, just like in straightness there's beauty, right? When you go and you drive, like it's very different seeing a straight road that cuts through the mountains and a windy one, right? Each of them is representative of a different type of beauty and a different type of path. And the important lesson for us is to understand that when I'm dealing with my wife, or I'm dealing with my daughter, or I'm dealing with my mother, or I'm dealing with anyone, like if I'm dealing with a female, I need to understand that, hey, I cannot deal with her the way I would deal with another man. And same thing with women. I cannot deal with a man the same way I would deal with other women. And we find that even within our culture. If I deal with a man, if I deal with a woman like a man, does she appreciate it? More times than not, she's not going to. And the same thing applies to the opposite, right? Like, so when a woman deals with a man as if he was a woman, the man is not going to appreciate that. And even in the same hadith, it says, don't try to straighten it. Don't try to change the nature of a woman. Because if you try to change it, what's going to happen? You're going to break it. And that's always going to be damaging, right? And this is what actually destroys relationships. When we try to change that nature. Like when we try to make something straight. A woman should never try to make a man more feminine, just like a man should never try to make a woman more masculine. Right? These are two things that need to be embraced. Yes?
What about the saying, that which doesn't bend breaks?
Sure, I think that applies. But there's a little bit of flexibility that needs to apply, like even in men, right? There has to be flexibility. And I think, at least classically in a lot of traditional relationships, especially if you have relationships where the man is the sole financial provider, right? He's the sole financial provider. He's the one. In general, who changes more in the relationship? The woman does, right? And that's historically it's been like that. And why is that? Because there's so many services that's being provided from one side. So she's willing to make those changes, and she's willing to adapt to him because of the efforts that he's making for her. And there's a lot of things that definitely go into that, and I think it's important to have that flexibility. I believe that part of that curvedness or that crookedness is the patience that wives and mothers have. Like, you know what I mean? Like, I as a father, I know I don't have it. Like, you know, I love my daughters and like my kids to death. I only have so much, like, you know what I mean? Like, I can only spend so much time with them. And I look at my wife and she just does not exhaust. And it's like, like, to me, it's like mind-boggling. It's like, I'm like, wow. She can spend like hours on end. After 5 minutes, I'm like, all right, what do I do? Like, you know, I don't mind. If I don't have a purpose, like, okay, I need to take them somewhere, I need to do something, I need to do this, like, I can play with them certain things. But like, without a purpose, it's very difficult for, at least for me, and I know it's an anecdotal example, for just looking at that difference in the difference of nature and like even how they interact. Like when children want like security and safety, and when they want love and they want affection, right? Like the different parent that they'll go to in seeking those things. And in general, like you have that. It doesn't mean that because even masculinity and femininity, it's a spectrum, right? The problem that I have with like Western thought behind this is they think gender is a spectrum. Like, no, that's not true, right? Gender is gender, right? You have men and women. Are there men who lean more feminine? Yeah, absolutely. And are there women who lean more masculine? Absolutely. But that's an issue of personality, right? That has nothing to do with like, does it change who you are essentially? No, I don't think so. But yeah, I just thought it was a nice side discussion on this. There's a lot more to talk about Adam alayhi salam. I just don't want the discussion to get too long. Unfortunately, we're only in the beginning of the story. They haven't even gotten kicked out of paradise yet. So, inshallah, let's see how often do we do this, Amna? Amna, how often is this?
The what?
The series.
Oh, every second Friday of the month.
Okay, so we have an announcement group for it.
Yeah, we can create one.
Okay, or just do the Minara, like.
It's okay, I'll create one
Yeah.
for it.
Yeah. Okay. Masha, inshallah.
So next one will be February 14th.
Okay. Masha. All right. Khalas, so we'll stop here, bi'idhnillah, and then we'll. Man, there's like so much. Yeah. Go ahead.
For what will you tell to those of us women or girls
Yeah.
that think like they are being treated differently
Yeah.
in their family?
So there's a difference between being treated differently and being treated disrespectfully. I had this conversation, and sometimes these conversations like people don't like having. I had a youth conversation one time where it was young men and it was young women. These guys, I think like maybe high school, college age. And the girls were complaining saying that, okay, well, our parents let the boys stay out a little longer than us. I said, listen, I'm not here to justify that. I don't think that's right? If you have rules, try to be consistent with those rules. But I also said to these young women, I said, listen, I'm going to be very honest with you. The fear of sexual molestation for boys is much less. It's much less than it is for girls. Girls tend to be physically weaker, right? They tend to be the ones who are the targets of these. It doesn't mean boys and males they're not targets, right? But they're significantly less. And that's why parents deal with the children differently. I have no problem with dealing with children differently. Remember, like I said, that men should treat women like women, and women should treat men like men, right? That's how it should be. And if I'm treating people differently, it doesn't mean that it's wrong, right? I cannot be disrespectful. That's what everybody deserves, to be respected and honored. But it's also important for us to understand, like, are there certain things that I would allow? Yeah. And are there certain things that I would be more hesitant with? Yeah. I would be. So someone would be like, oh, so you would let your son travel and you wouldn't let your daughter travel? I said, I would let my son travel, and it would depend on where my daughter wants to go. Right? I'm just being honest. And my kids are ones like, my girls, they know how to use guns. Like, so it's not even an issue of that. Like, I will send them, it'd be like, here, you know what you need to take, you know what you need to do. But at the end of the day, I wouldn't want to put them in a susceptible position. And like I said, because even one of the job of men is to protect women, right? That's their job. And someone might be, oh, from whom? From other men. Yes, I have no problem admitting that. I have no problem saying that. But if that is our job, it's like, okay, part of that job is making sure they're not in vulnerable positions. Even Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, Surah An-Nisa, you know what Surah An-Nisa talks about? In addition to women? It talks about vulnerable populations. It talks about people who have handicaps. It talks about people who are elderly. It talks about children. Why? Because these are all groups that deserve to be protected. Like, they deserve it. It's like, well, why? Yeah, yes, why not? I'm saying any space that a person walks into, you have every right of feeling safe. And it's very different for a woman to walk into a space knowing that there's a man with her and walking into a space alone. And I know everybody knows that. People don't like talking about it, right? That's very different. But there's a big difference between disliking a discussion and understanding the reality behind it. So if you guys ever have any, there you go. Huh? But you saw my secret chats?
I saw really cool email.
Right. So if you guys have any ideas for programming, talk to Amna. Like, I have no issue. Like, whatever it is that you. The only thing is like I want people to feel like they're being served, and I want community members to feel like they're being served in the programming that's available. And the way to do that is like when you guys make requests. Like if you don't ask for stuff, you know what we're gonna do? We're just gonna come up with stuff off the top of our head. Yeah.
We used to come to the testing
Yeah.
class on Thursdays.
Yeah.
It's just difficult
Mhm.
to come on a
Thursday,
A
sure.
Friday is ideal for like
Okay.
young professionals,
And
I think.
and that's the thing. I don't know. Yeah. The Tuesday. Yeah. I mean, we have programs on Tuesdays
Yeah,
too.
so like
Yeah.
Monday through
Do Thursday.
through kind of-
Yeah. I like the weekday programs, but it's all good. Like I have no problem.
Well, by the time you cut from DC and then
Yeah.
over and then
No. Allah make it easy. Yeah. I know the struggle is real.
yeah.
So also if you follow Imam Farhan's Instagram page, you will see all the programs.
And like hit me up. Like send me a DM. Yeah. Yeah. Send yeah. Like it's like yo send me a DM. Be like hey listen why stop doing weekday classes like I want and the thing is I have no problem putting out surveys. So if people want weekend classes, okay, we'll do classes on the weekend. If people prefer during the week, the only reason that I personally offer during the week is I want people's weekends to be free, right? Right. I thought I was being selfless, but apparently I'm being selfish, right?
It's just a preference thing.
Sure. No. And everybody has their own preference. And some people will be like, no, I want to spend my Friday night, you know, in a discussion and like in a social gathering. Like I enjoy the message. That's great. I have no problem catering to that.
Great. So
Yeah.
I will lobby the folks.
Yes.
with surveys to do that.
Go for it. No problem. Anything else? Any other questions? No? All right. Jazakallah khair. Subhanakallah wa bihamdik wa ashhadu an la ilaha illa anta astaghfiruka wa atubu ilayk.